At the end of the war, I became part of a military government team. I volunteered for that because I was asked to volunteer because I spoke German by that time pretty fluently. But when I came at the end of the war to this place, it's called Stadtkreis, Landkreis, Ansbach, meaning the state and the state capital. And it was about, I don't know how many thousands of people. And it had 80 towns and villages. And we were the only Americans prominently representing officialdom there. We started out by inventorying everybody and by making everybody fill out these forms called Fragebogen, or questionnaires in German. And that was supposed to give us their life history, or what they did, if they joined the Nazi Party, when they joined it, whether they contributed to it, or whether they had any problems, anything reported against Jews that they had participated in, anything that was supposed to be summed up by this questionnaire. Of course, you can't sum up anything by a questionnaire. You as you know, human creatures are far more malleable and subtle than any questionnaire can find out just by these questions. And we couldn't measure the degree of their Nazi affiliation or loyalty by a questionnaire, but this questionnaire was sent to us by the psychological warfare department of the State Department in their wisdom, and don't tell me what idiot made it up. But I soon saw when the stream of people coming to my office that this questionnaire was not adequate. I discarded it. I threw it out. And nobody could do anything to me because I was the only German-speaking guy fluent enough to use it. So we went along for some months like that. We went around to 80 villages, and in each of these villages we had interviews, and each of them we fired the mayor. Very few Germans invited us to their homes. There was very little social life. And, the Germans lived in humiliating isolation from us. They had their windows closed and had curtains pulled down during the day in many homes. In the beginning, there was no violence. There was no organized opposition to our occupation. And then we discovered one day that our supplies were being stolen. We had a little storehouse of cigarettes and food supplies and chocolate bars and things like that every unit in Germany had. But someone was stealing from us, and the order came down that we have to find that thief and make an example of him, end quotes. Now, another one of those idiot orders, but it came down. So the guy ordered me, the colonel in charge of our unit, as a German-speaking member, to take a detachment of soldiers and stake out this storeroom at night and wait there until we found the thief. That's what we did. And we found a 14-year-old German boy came in there, and he had a bicycle, and he had a big grocery thing, a carrier on the back of his bicycle, and he filled it with the usual stuff. It made his life and his family life easier to have that stuff. We followed him to his house. He lived in a poor section of town. I had 4 or 5 guys with me. They were armed to the teeth. I mean, they had their rifles, and some had grenades and stuff. This wasn't going to be an armed confrontation, I thought, It was a civilian action, but we were all in uniform. When we saw him go into the house, I knocked on the door. I wanted to be polite, but some of my men, the eager beavers, went around to the back door and forced their way in. And they came in there, and the minute they got in there, they saw this kid had just unloaded his cache of stuff on a dining room table, and they went berserk. By this time, since nobody opened the door, I just opened it and went in with the other 2 guys who were with me. We found a German woman, the mother. She was a widow. Her husband had been a German war veteran, killed in the war, and 2 little girls. They began using their rifle butts to smash their way into closets and smash glass vitrines and cabinets where there were dishes, searching for stuff. And I was shocked. They were behaving like ugly Americans, if you want to know the truth. So I told them, I ordered them to stop, but they were in a fit. So I pulled out I had a Tommy gun, which I always carried, and I shot a few shots through the window. That brought their attention, nothing flat. And they looked at me, and I said, "That's an order. You quit that stuff. What's the matter with you?" And I told them, your ass will be in a sling. You'll be in the can tomorrow if you don't quit right now. So they quit, and I realized later, much later, that they were taking out a lot of stuff on this family. They were blaming them for everything, for their loneliness, for the long time they had been away from their families, for the accumulated fear that they had during combat, which they were suppressing. They were scapegoating them, in other words. And I told this lady that we were very sorry, and we'd have to take her son in custody because he had been stealing. We'd take him to the German police station on our way home. I was sorry, and she wouldn't look at me in the eye, and everybody else, and the two little girls were huddled as if I were a Nazi. And we left, and I chewed these guys out on the way home, and they were kind of contrite. They were silent. They didn't say anything. And we left this boy off at the police station, and I told the police chief to go easy on him. Don't put him in with the goddamn hardened criminals in there. And when I went home, I couldn't sleep because the images of what these guys were doing, and they were ordinary guys. I never saw them like that. I went back the next day, and with gifts for this woman, I wanted to apologize to her in some tangible way. So I made up a gift package from our kitchen, because I knew that real food was more important than chocolate bars. And when she saw me coming to her, she was on the sidewalk. She ran away from me down the street in the opposite way from her house. And she saw me no different than the other guys. And when I saw that look on her face looking at me, something in me snapped. I left all that stuff inside the house, which was unlocked. And I went home and I wrote out a letter applying for immediate redeployment back to the States. I was there as a volunteer, and I had the right to do that. More important, I began to think about my fellow buddies. They were good guys. Most of them, none of them were screw-ups. Some of them had been heroes in the war. So if you saw them at that moment, you think they were juvenile delinquents. All of them, they were not. But I decided that's what the war was doing to us. I thought things would get worse in this town, not better. And I applied for redeployment, and in due course it came. They tried to argue me out of it, of course. I couldn't tell them the reasons. Nobody in my unit understood that. That's why I wrote my book, novel about it, Straw to Make Brick. I was 23 years old when I wrote it. We had an injustice being done to us, and we met it with greater injustice, and for reasons which are easily traceable. Beginning with the whole idea of judging people on the basis of a questionnaire to the scene that I just described to you, the whole thing made me freak out because I saw the Americans were crazy. They thought they could measure everything just with a questionnaire. Of course, they couldn't.